Hello, and welcome to this Climatix IC learning session about web graphic. This e-learning covers the workflow of creating and activating a web graphic. Let us look at the steps. First, a web graphic needs to be created by adding form and a text element. After completion, we export and import the graphic into the graphic configurator within Climatix IC. In the graphic configurator, we select the graphic elements and map the data points. The elements have different mapping options. Also, a color change or the visibility of an element needs to be mapped. Next, we test the graphic and its mapping. If the web graphic works as expected, the file can be exported and loaded into an application set. Last but not least, the web graphic can be tested in the operating menu. Two mapping mechanisms are available to display data in a web graphic. The cloud mapping, change of value mechanism, pushes data to Climatix IC so that the last known value is always available in the cloud, even when the controller is offline. Cloud mapping requests are best suited for cloud items such as analog, binary, and multi-state inputs. The JSON mechanism enables data to be requested from the controller's API directly to the web graphic via a secure tunnel connection. The base64 ID addressing works in principle the same way as the JSON. However, it is a newer encoding format. JSON and base64 ID are best suited for analog data points, in order to display their near real-time value which may otherwise be hidden behind a COV threshold. However, if the controller is offline, then no value will be shown. Choose the appropriate mechanism depending on the purpose of use. The scope engineering tool can be used to assign the data points to the web graphic elements. Let us get started creating a web graphic using a tool that supports SVG graphics. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. Use any tool from the market, for example Adobe or Inkscape, as Siemens does not provide a graphic tool. For our demonstration, I am using an online tool, creating a simple web graphic. We create a simple web graphic by adding a rectangle and a round shape. Also, we change the color filling. Next, we are adding two text objects and grouping some elements together. It is also useful to label the elements so that they can be easily found in a complex web graphic. Before we export the image, we adapt the view box to an optimal size. In this case, we resize the view page. Now we export the picture as an SVG file. Switching to the Climatix IC graphic configurator that is accessible for the application administrator only. Then we import the file. With use of the toolbox, the graphics can be adapted. The first icon allows the web graphic view to be moved. The next two icons allow to move the elements, or the grouped elements. In the graphic configurator we can add new text elements only. I will add two additional text elements for demonstration purposes. One text element is to change the color of the circle and the other text element to change the visibility. Be aware that the use of the graphic configurator does not allow adding new graphic elements. The graphic configurator is also available as an offline tool. The element inspector to the right shows the structure of the elements. It is useful to assign a distinctive label so that they can be found in complex graphics. The label could be adjusted if this was not named optimally when it was created. The workspace can be customized by enabling or disabling the window options. In the option windows, we can zoom the graphic and change the highlight and the selection color. The next tab is called Visibility, and allows to remove the entire web graphic from the operating menu. This is the case when the entered data point is not available in the controller application, or the user has no access rights to it. The mapping is a crucial part of the workflow process. The Mapping Properties window is used to map the mapping ID of the data point objects from the controller to the web graphic, with help of the Scope Engineering tool. Before we start mapping, we need to specify whether to use the definable or the automatic mapping ID. Using the automatic mapping ID ensures that a unique mapping ID is used. First, we want to map the circle and the color change. Therefore, we select the circle and navigate to the Color tab. From the Scope Engineering tool, we simply drag and drop the mapping ID to any field. As you can see, all the mapping options are automatically filled out. Next, we can select the mapping mechanism. In our example, we are using the JSON mapping. In order to change the color of the circle, we add two colors and their values for the color change. To change the color, we select the text field and navigate to the Text tab. We drag and drop the mapping ID and select the JSON mapping. This text element needs the attribute writable, as we want to change the color of the circle. The other text element will be used to hide the grouped element. We select the other text element and drag and drop the mapping ID. Also, this text element needs the attribute writable, as we want to hide the element by changing the value. We select the text element within the grouped element to indicate the status when visible. We drag and drop the mapping ID and select the JSON mapping. Next, we select the grouped element and drag and drop the mapping ID. Also, we need to add the level value. 0 means false and the object will be hidden. After adaptation, we must save the changes in the browser. In the Mapping Inspector, we can see the mappings that have been completed in relation to the graphical elements. When adding a cloud mapping, we can directly search the data point objects of plants or systems without using the Scope Engineering tool. Now it's time to test it. Therefore, we search for the plant and start the test. You can already see the graphic is updated with the values from the plant. We can change the values from Scope or directly from the graphic itself, as we enabled the option that the data points are writable. We select the writable text element and apply the value 10. The color of the circle has changed. We can also apply the value 20 that we have configured with another color. What will be tested next? Correct, the visibility. Therefore, we select the writable text element and apply the hiding parameter to the grouped element. It seems to work. Now we make the element visible again, and it seems to work properly. Let's briefly introduce some other functions of the tool. Under Windows, we can enable or disable windows. For example, the History window was not enabled before. We can move it somewhere in the workspace or pin it to a specific position. At left up corner, we have some more functions. We can delete, undo, or redo a command. We also recommend saving the changes from time to time. To enlarge the workspace, simply switch to full screen view and back. Now, it is time to export the graphic and use it in the application set or the web HMI. Let us import the graphic files. Therefore, we navigate to the application set and select the application set we would like to update with new graphic files. Under Application, we must change the file type. We search for the newly created graphic file to upload. Add a file name, description, and a version number, and save it. Under Settings, User Access Configuration, we select the newly created graphic file for a user role. This table allows to set for each user role a customized web graphic. Once the changes are completed, the page must be saved before we leave. Let us test the web graphic. We navigate to the menu operation and select the plant to receive its data points. As we made these mapping objects writable, we can change the color. Also, we can hide the graphic and make it visible. Now it's time to apply what you have learned.